When you step in here, it looks like andre nama hale kala. We've stepped back into those good old days.
Trying to maintain the same thing.
I think that's something that people don't realize, Allah. To create something new is very easy, but to maintain a legacy is very difficult. And that too in a manner where they're paying a great deal of attention to culinary traditions and serving those dishes at as affordable a price as possible. That's a spicy chutney. So you have a bit of the sweetness in that Goli Bajje, and then you have that khara, green chili punch. What I like about the sambar is a balance of flavors. It's not a sambar that's too sweet, it's not a sambar that's too sour, it's not a sambar that's too spicy. There's no milk solids, but there's the milk that brings it all together, and you can definitely taste a bit of that creamy texture in this dessert. Well, all the dishes that I've tasted, the Mangalore bajji, the idli, vade, Khali Dosae, palya, sagu, bread toast, halwa, and the coffee tea is all of rupees 270. Namaskara folks, this is Kripal Amanna, Gourmet on the Road, and you're watching Food Lovers TV. I hope you're doing well, I hope you're staying safe and strong. So today we've arrived in Basavanagudi to an eatery that first opened doors in 1926. You know, a big part of our work at Food Lovers TV is to chronicle these incredible culinary establishments that have stood the test of time, that have served people for decades, and in this case for nearly a century. I can't wait to step into Mahalakshmi Tiffin Room when these doors finally open and find out what makes a culinary establishment stand the test of time for nearly a century, and also savor some of the tiffin tindi that's on offer here. Namaskara, Mr. Girish.
Yes, sir.
How are you doing?
Fine, sir.
We arrived a little early. We thought we'd wait for
No problem.
the place to open. Thank you very much. Well, looks like we're the first customers in today, huh?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. Namaskara, sir. ನನ್ನ ಹೆಸರು Kripal Amanna. Nice to meet you, sir. What's your name, sir?
Vade.
Mr. Vasudev. I have heard of this place for a very long time. Somehow I've not been able to make it here. Therefore, this time I decided before Diwali, I have to come here. So I'm with Mr. Girish Karan, who represents the third generation of Mahalakshmi Tiffin Room. So who began this?
My grandfather. It was near Goli. We have been in this place from 1949.
It is not every day that you come across an eatery that's been around for nearly 100 years, for nearly a century. So what makes...
Sir, support of the customers, and what we give is simple food. That's it. We don't add anything extra masala type like that.
So andre nimdu ಊರಲ್ಲಿ sir?
ನಮ್ಮದು ಊರು ಬಂದು ಜಪ್ತಿ ಗ್ರಾಮ ಅಂತ ಕೈಲ್ಕೆರೆ.
ಕೈಲ್ಕೆರೆ.
ಉಡುಪಿ ಡಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಕ್ಟ್.
Your grandfather ಆವಾಗ ಬಂದು ಇಲ್ಲಿ. He became here and he began this.
ಆವಾಗ ನಮ್ಮ ಅಜ್ಜಿ ಜೊತೆ ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ, ಅಂದರೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಮುತ್ತಜ್ಜಿ. ಆಮೇಲೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಚಿಕ್ಕ ತಾತ ಬಂದು, ಆಮೇಲೆ ವಿ ಮೂವ್ ಟು ದಿಸ್ ಪ್ಲೇಸ್.
Mahalakshmi Tiffin Room ಹೇಗೆ ಬಂತು ನೇಮ್?
ಮಹಾಲಕ್ಷ್ಮಿ ಟಿಫಿನ್ ರೂಮ್ ನಮ್ಮ ತಂದೆ ಅವರ ತಾಯಿ.
So after her, this is named as Mahalakshmi Tiffin Room. When you step in here, it looks like andre nama hale kala. We've stepped back into those good old days.
Trying to maintain the same thing.
I think that's something that people don't realize, Allah. To create something new is very easy, but to maintain a legacy is very difficult. So what's special here, sir, food-wise?
ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಖಾಲಿ ದೋಸೆ ಇಷ್ಟಪಡ್ತಾರೆ.
Khali Dosae. Okay.
ಸೊ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಆಯಿಲ್ ಇರಲ್ಲ.
ಹಾಂ.
ಸೊ ಇಟ್ ವಿಲ್ ಬಿ ಸಾಫ್ಟ್. ಈ ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆ ಹೊತ್ತು ಬಂದಿದ್ರೆ ಬರೀ ವೈಟ್ ಟೈರ್ಡ್ ಕಸ್ಟಮರ್ಸೇ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ ನಮಗೆ.
ಅವರಿಗೆ ಅಂದರೆ ಒಂದು ಹ್ಯಾಬಿಟ್ ಆಗಿದೆ.
ಹೌದು, ಬಂದು ಒಂದು ಇಡ್ಲಿ ಸಾಂಬಾರು ತಿನ್ಕೊಂಡು ಅಥವಾ ಒಂದು ಸಿಂಗಲ್ ಖಾಲಿ ತಿನ್ಕೊಂಡು ಮತ್ತೆ ಮನೆಗೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಮನೇಲಿ ತಿನ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದು. 5:30 6 ಗಂಟೆಗೆ ಬಂದು ಲೈಟಾಗಿ ಮತ್ತೆ ಟಿಫನ್ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಂಡು ಮತ್ತೆ ಮನೆಗೆ ಹೋಗಿ ಊಟ ಮಾಡೋ ಅಂತ. ನಿಮ್ಮದೇ ಹೆಸರು ಸರ್? You are a customer here for how many years?
More than 30-40 years.
Well, it's always a good sign when customers voluntarily come forward and tell you about what makes this eatery special. Fantastic.
ಬಜ್ಜಿ ಸರ್.
Goli Bajje. You know you're drawing closer to South Canada when you see the Mangalore Bajji, the Goli Bajje. So this is your dosa counter.
Yes sir. This is our old one. ಅವಾಗೆಲ್ಲ ದೋಸೆ ಸೌದೆ ಹಾಕಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇತ್ತಲ್ಲ.
ಸೊ ಅದು ಹೆಂಚು ಇದು. ಸೊ ಅದು ಯೂಸ್ ಮಾಡಲ್ಲ ಈಗ.
ಇದು ಓನ್ಲಿ ಆನ್ ಸ್ಯಾಟರ್ಡೇಸ್ ಆರ್ ಸಂಡೇಸ್.
ಈಗೇನು ಚಪಾತಿ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ.
ಇದು ಪಲ್ಯ.
ಪಲ್ಯಗೋಸ್ಕರ. ಓಕೆ.
ಇದು ಬೆಣ್ಣೆ ಮುರುಕು.
ಬೆಣ್ಣೆ ಮುರುಕು.
ಇದು ಆ್ಯಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಬೆಳಿಗ್ಗೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಈಗ ಖಾಲಿ ಆಗಿರೋದ್ರಿಂದ ಇನ್ನೊಂದ್ಸಲಿ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಎವ್ರಿ ಡೇ 7:45 ಬಂದರೆ ಅದು ಬಿಸಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಅದರೊಳಗೆ ಅಕ್ಕಿ, ಕಡಲೆಬೇಳೆ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಉದ್ದಿನಬೇಳೆ ಇಷ್ಟು ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ಬೆಣ್ಣೆ ಹಾಕ್ತೀವಿ, ಸಾಟೆ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಆಯಿಲ್.
ಸೊ ಬೆಣ್ಣೆ ಮುರುಕು ಯಾಕೆ ಕರೀತಾರೆ?
ಸಾಫ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ. ಸಮಟೈಮ್ಸ್ ಅದನ್ನು ಉಪಯೋಗಿಸ್ತೀವಿ, ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಆಯಿಲ್.
ವೆಲ್ ದೇರ್ ಸಮ್ ಖಾಲಿ ದೋಸೆ ಫ್ಲೈಯಿಂಗ್ ಔಟ್. ಅದೇನು ಆಯಿಲ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಘೀ
ಮಿಕ್ಸ್.
ಸೊ ಹೌ ಮಚ್ ಇಸ್ ದ ದೋಸೆ ಹಿಯರ್? 60 rupees. ಖಾಲಿ ದೋಸೆ 45 rupeesಗೆ ಒಂದು ಪ್ಲೇಟ್, ಎರಡು ಪೀಸ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ವಾಟ್ ಮೇಕ್ಸ್ ಅ ಖಾಲಿ ದೋಸೆ ಹಿಯರ್ ಸ್ಪೆಷಲ್? ಯಾಕೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಇಷ್ಟಪಡ್ತಾರೆ
ನೋಡಿ, ಇದರ ಏನಿರಲ್ಲ, ಆಯಿಲ್ ಇರಲ್ಲ, ಸೊ ಅದು ಲೈಟ್ ಆನ್ ದ ಟಮಿ ಆಲ್ಸೋ. ಕುಸುಬ್ಲಕ್ಕಿ ತರಿ ಹಾಕ್ತೀವಿ, ಅಕ್ಕಿ ಹಾಕ್ತೀವಿ, ಉದ್ದಿನಬೇಳೆ, ಅವಲಕ್ಕಿ, ಮೆಂತ್ಯ ಹಾಕ್ತೀರಾ. ಸೊ ಅವಲಕ್ಕಿಂದ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಅದು ಸಾಫ್ಟ್ನೆಸ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಇದು ಟಕ್ ಟಕ್ ಹೇಗೆ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಕರೀಲಿಕ್ಕೆ? ಐ ಲೈಕ್ ದಿ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಹಿಯರ್. ನಿಮ್ದು ಹೆಸರೇನು ಸರ್? ಸಾಗರ್. Every once in a while Sagar tongue ಮಾಡ್ತಿದ್ರು. I said, is Sagar getting disturbed? Are we in his space? Illa. But when the order is ready, tongue ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ and people from the outside come in and collect the order for the customers. ಖಾಲಿ ದೋಸೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಮಸಾಲೆ ದೋಸೆ ಹಿಟ್ಟಲ್ಲಿ ವ್ಯತ್ಯಾಸ ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ? ವ್ಯತ್ಯಾಸ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ ಸರ್, ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ವಾಟರ್ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ, ಅದು ಗಟ್ಟಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಮತ್ತೆ ರೈಸ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಉದ್ದುದು ರೇಷಿಯೋ ಏನಿರುತ್ತೆ? 1 kg ಉದ್ದಿನ ಬೇಳೆಗೆ ನಾವು 8 ರಿಂದ 9 ಲೀಟರ್ ಅಕ್ಕಿ ಹಾಕ್ತೀವಿ. ಅದು ಕುಸುಬ್ಲಕ್ಕಿ ಅಲ್ಲ, ಇದು ನಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಕುಸುಬ್ಲಕ್ಕಿ. ನಾವು ಮಿಕ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಹಾಕ್ತೀವಿ. 5 kg ಇಂದ 7 kg ಅಕ್ಕಿ ರುಬ್ತೀವಿ, ಆವಾಗ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ 2 ಲೀಟ್ರ್ ತರಿ ಮಿಕ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಅವಲಕ್ಕಿ ಒಂದು 3/4 ಲೀಟ್ರು, 1 ಕಪ್ಪು ಮೆಂತ್ಯ. ಮಸಾಲೆ ದೋಸೆಗೆ ಹಂಚಲ್ಲಿ ಎಣ್ಣೆ ಇರುವ, ಖಾಲಿ ದೋಸೆ ಹಾಕ್ಬೇಕಾದ್ರೆ ಎಣ್ಣೆ ಹಾಕ್ತಾ ಹಂಚಿಗೆ, ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಈ ಥರ ಬರುತ್ತೆ.
ಸೊ he says that the dosa tawa, the hanchu should not have oil when you put the masala dosa. ಆವಾಗ ಕಲರ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ, ಕ್ರಿಸ್ಪ್ನೆಸ್ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಬಟ್ ಖಾಲಿ ದೋಸೆ ಹಾಕುವಾಗ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಆಯಿಲ್ ಇರಬೇಕು.
ದೋಸೆ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ.
ಸೊ ಡಿಫ್ರೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಂದರೆ ಬರೀ ಅದು ಖಾಲಿ ದೋಸೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ನೀರು ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ, ಬಾಕಿ ರೇಷಿಯೋ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸೇಮ್ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಬರೀ ನೀರಂತೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ. ಇದು ನಿಮ್ಮದು ಚಟ್ನಿ,
ಕಾಯಿ ಹುರ್ಗಡ್ಲೆ, ಕೊತ್ತಂಬರಿ ಸೊಪ್ಪು, ಮೆಣಸಿನ್ಕಾಯಿ, ಹುಣಸೆ ಹಣ್ಣು, ಒಂಚೂರು ಬೆಲ್ಲ. ಮುಂಚೆ ಶುಂಠಿ ಹಾಕ್ತಾ ಇದ್ವಿ, ಈಗ ಸುತ್ತಮುತ್ತ ಎಲ್ಲ ಜೈನ್ ಕಮ್ಯುನಿಟಿ ಇರೋರು ಅವ್ರು ಶುಂಠಿ ಬೇಡ,
ಶುಂಠಿ ಬೇಡ ಅವರಿಗೆ. ಬೆಳ್ಳುಳ್ಳಿ
ನಾವು
ಕಾಫಿ ರೂಮ್,
ಕಾಫಿ ಕೌಂಟರು, ಇಡ್ಲಿ,
ಓಕೆ,
ಸಾಗು,
ಫ್ಯಾಂಟಾಸ್ಟಿಕ್. ಸೊ ಸಾಯಂಕಾಲ ಏನೇನು ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ?
ಸಾಯಂಕಾಲ ರವೆ ಇಡ್ಲಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಬಜ್ಜಿ.
ಸಾಯಂಕಾಲ ಅಂದರೆ ಮಧ್ಯಾಹ್ನ. ಇನ್ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಐ ಹ್ಯಾವೆಂಟ್ ಈಟನ್ ಲಂಚ್. ಇವತ್ತು ಲಂಚ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ ನಾನು. ಸೊ ಐ ಥಾಟ್ ಐ ವಿಲ್ ಕಮ್ ಹಿಯರ್, ಎಲ್ಲ ಟಿಫಿನ್ ಐಟಮ್ ಟೇಸ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಅದೇ ಲಂಚ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ನಮ್ಮದು. ನಮ್ಮದು ಸೌತ್ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ರಾ ಸಾಂಬಾರಾ ಸರ್?
ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ತುಂಬ ಗಟ್ಟಿ ಇರಲ್ಲ ಸರ್, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ನೀರಾಗಿದ್ದೇ ಇರೋದು. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಡಿಪ್ ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್ ಅಂದರೆ ನೀವು ಇಡ್ಲಿ ಅದ್ರ ಮೇಲೆ ಸಾಂಬಾರು ಉಯ್ಕೊಂಡು ತಿನ್ನಂಗಿದ್ರೆ ನಾವು ಹಾಕ್ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ.
ಸೊ ಈ ಸೇಸ್ ದ ಸಾಂಬಾರ್ ಹಿಯರ್ ಇಸ್ ನಾಟ್ ಥಿಕ್, ಇನ್ಫ್ಯಾಕ್ಟ್ ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಅ ಲಿಟಲ್ ರನಿ, ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಪೀಪಲ್ ಪ್ರಿಫರ್ ದ ಡಿಪ್ sambar
with idli or vada.
So you want that sambar to be of the consistency that will easily seep into the pores of the idli. Fantastic. ಇದು ಅಕ್ಕಿ ತರಿ ಇಡ್ಲಿ. ಸೊ ಎಷ್ಟು ಭಾಗ?
1 to 2.
ಒಂದು ಪಾರ್ಟ್ ಅಕ್ಕಿ ತರಿ,
ಉದ್ದಿನ ಬೇಳೆಗೆ 2 ತರಿ. ನಿಮ್ಗೆ ಇಡ್ಲಿ ಸಾಫ್ಟ್ ಆಗೂ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಇದನ್ನು ಏನು ತಿನ್ನಕ್ಕೂ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ. ಇಲ್ಲಾಂದ್ರೆ ಬರೀ ತರಿ ಬಾಯಿಗೆ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ.
ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಇಡ್ಲಿ ಎಷ್ಟಕ್ಕೆ ಮಾರ್ತೀರಾ ನೀವು?
17 rupees.
170 rupees per idli. So andre the prices you have kept.
ಒಂದು 2 ರೂಪಾಯಿ ದರ್ಶನಿಗಿನ್ನ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇಟ್ಟಿದ್ದೀವಿ ನಾವು ಅಷ್ಟೇ.
A lot of these places that have been around for decades, in this case 98 years, it's not just a business that's running, They're actually providing a service to all the customers that you see sitting out there, for whom a meal, a tiffin at Mahalakshmi Tiffin Room is almost a habit, without which their day is incomplete.
ಸುಮಾರು ಜನ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ ಆ ಥರ ಡೈಲಿ ಕಸ್ಟಮರ್.
It's nice to see that along with the traditional aspect of running things here, they have also modernized to include things like a dishwasher. So they're full clean, hygienic ಆಗಿ ಹೊರಗೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ.
ಬಿಸಿ ಬಿಸಿಯಾಗಿ ಬರುತ್ತೆ.
ಬಿಸಿ ಬಿಸಿಯಾಗಿ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಇದು ಬೆಣ್ಣೆ ಮುರುಕು. ಕ್ರಂಚಿ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಸಾಫ್ಟ್. ಅದೇನು ಓಮ ಇದೆ ಒಳಗೆ?
ಓಮ ಗೀಗೆ
Oh, I love this. I can taste the flavor of the carom seeds in that. There's also a bit of jeera that I taste in that. So this building is yours. Mele ಏನಿದೆ?
ಮೇಲ್ಗಡೆ ಇವಾಗ ನಮ್ಮ ಮನೆ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದೀವಿ.
Oh, so you live upstairs. Oh, fantastic.
ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಓಡ್ತಾ ಇರೋದು. ಸೊ ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆ 4:15 ಗಂಟೆಗೆ ಎದ್ದು ಒಂದ್ಸಲಿ ಕಿವಿ ಕೊಟ್ಟರೆ ಅವ್ನು ರೂಪಾನು ಎದ್ದಿದ್ದಾನೆ ಅಂದರೆ ಸೊ ನಾವು ಮತ್ತೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಅವರ್ ಮಲಗ್ತೀವಿ. ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಮ್ಯಾನೇಜರು ಕ್ಯಾಶರ್ ಯಾರಿಲ್ಲ, ಎಲ್ಲ ನಾನು ಅವರೇ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ. ನನ್ನ ಮಗ ಇವಾಗ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಇಯರ್ BE ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾನೆ.
Okay. So is he also going to continue this legacy?
ಸೊ ನಾನು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಇನ್ನು ಡಿಗ್ರಿ ಮುಗಿಸೋವರೆಗಾರು ಕಷ್ಟ ಬಿದ್ದು ನಾನು ನಡೆಸ್ತೀನಪ್ಪ, ಆಮೇಲೆ ಇನ್ನೆರಡವರ ನಡ್ಸೋ ಇಲ್ಲ ಕೆಲ್ಸಕ್ಕೆ ಹೋಗ್ತೀನಿ ಅಂದರೆ ಕೆಲ್ಸಕ್ಕೆ.
It'd be wonderful if these businesses transcend future generations as well. Because to have something running for 98 years is no joke. These days when restaurants open, for every 10 that open, 1 year adamele 9 sikkalla. 9 have already closed, but out here this place has been running for the last 98 years. So andre nimdu illi way of life kuda ಆ ಕಾಲ ಅದು.
ಈಗ ಜನ್ರೇಷನ್ ಶಿಫ್ಟ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇದೆ. ಅವಾಗೆಲ್ಲನೂ ಕಸ್ಟಮರು ಎದುರುಗಡೆ ಇರೋರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಈಸಿಯಾಗಿ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು. ಬಟ್ ಇವಾಗ ಬರೋರು ಅವ್ರು ಯಾರ ಜೊತೆನೂ ಮಿಂಗಲ್ ಮಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಇಷ್ಟಪಡಲ್ಲ. ಅವ್ರಾಯಿತು ಅವ್ರ ಮೊಬೈಲ್
ಇರ್ತದೆ. So people also came to places like Mahalakshmi Tiffin Room not just for the tiffin tindi but also to catch up on what's happening. ಅಲ್ಲ ಒಂದು social need ಇತ್ತು. It's not just about ಊಟವೇ ಅಲ್ಲ, but also to mingle, to talk to people. ಅಲ್ಲ, you feel good.
ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, ಕಾನ್ವರ್ಸೇಷನ್ಗಳು ನಡೀತಾ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ನಾವು ಕೇಳಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡಿರ್ತೀವಿ, ನಾವು ಇಂಟರ್ಫಿಯರ್ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ಅದಕ್ಕೆ
ಟಫ್ ಇದೆ ಸರ್ ಈ ಥರ ಮೇಂಟೈನ್ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ನಿಮಗೆ? ಸಿಕ್ಕಾಪಟ್ಟೆ.
ಎವ್ರಿ ಡೇ ಇಸ್ ಎ ನ್ಯೂ ಡೇ.
Well, it's always nice to find out what people are eating. And there Mr. Rajaram is enjoying his Khali Dosae. And that's certainly something that I'm going to order.
Thank you.
See you. Thank you so much. Well, I think everybody who comes here pretty much knows what they want to order. I can see some Goli Bajje. I saw some Khali Dosae there. There's plenty of Khali Dosae. The table behind me was having a Khali Dosae. People come here and they know exactly what they want. But as for us, I think we're going to taste some of the dishes that they have on the menu here. Namaskara. ಏನು ಹೆಸರು ನಿಮ್ಮದು? So I think now start ಒಂದು idli ವಡೆಯಿಂದ ಮಾಡೋಣ. ಡಿಪ್ ಕೊಡಿ, ಮಂಗಳೂರು ಬಜ್ಜಿ ಕೂಡ ಕೊಡಿ. ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ.
ಖಾಲಿ ದೋಸೆ with ಪಲ್ಯ try ಮಾಡಿ.
You can walk in with a blank mind. People will tell you what to order. I think that's the goodwill that places like these have built over decades. It's not easy. I mean, you may come here and savor that idli vade and go back thinking nothing, but it takes a lot to keep establishments like these running, and that too in a manner where they're paying a great deal of attention to culinary traditions and serving those dishes at as affordable a price as possible. Well, the original plan was to begin with the idli vade, but then I saw the Goli Bajje there and I couldn't resist it. This idli and the vade is of course submerged with all that sambar. I think I should probably get a bite of that Goli Bajje first. That Goli Bajje is a sort that has a crispy crackle. You know, when you press into that Goli Bajje, you need to feel its crispy crackling texture. That to me is very important. Point number 1. And then on the inside soft, but it still has a bit of a tug. There's also a hint of sweetness that I'm detecting in this batter. Flecks of coconut, I think slivers of green chili, there's some curry leaf that goes into this. I like that near biscuity crunch of the exterior of that Goli Bajje. I think this will make for an excellent partnership with that chutney. That's a spicy chutney. So you have a bit of the sweetness in that Goli Bajje, and then you have that khara green chili punch of that Kai chutney. Oh, that's a delicious combination. Idu sugar ಹಾಕ್ತೀರಾ? Slight sweetness. ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ sugar ಹಾಕ್ತೀರಾ? ಓ ಉದ್ದಿನ ಹಿಟ್ಟು ಕೂಡ ಹಾಕ್ತೀರಾ? ಮೈದಾ ಮತ್ತೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಅಕ್ಕಿ ಹಿಟ್ಟು ಹಾಕ್ತೀರಲ್ಲ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಇದು ಗರಿಗೆ. Every Goli Bajje has its own recipe. So I was inquiring here with Mr. Girish, and he said that in addition to the maida, there's also some uddu hittu, which goes into the medu vada that goes into it. Not much, just a little bit. And also a bit of the rice flour, because that also gives it a bit of crunch. And what they also do is add a little bit of sugar just to give it that slight sweet note. But what I'm a fan of is the texture of that Goli Bajje. I love that near biscuity crunch of that exterior. On the inside it's soft. Flecks of coconut that you'll get once in a while, a bit of the green chili, and then that punch of that Kai chutney, that green chili punch, delicious. I think if you come to MLTR in the evening, definitely have this Goli Bajje. Idu bari sayankala ava idu, ಬೆಳಗ್ಗೆ ಸಿಕ್ಕಲ್ಲ. Delicious. When you bite into a Goli Bajje, on the inside there should be a bit of a tug. It should not have the consistency or texture of an uddina vade. It has to have a little bit of a tug. That's when you know that that Goli Bajje is textbook. On that note, let's get to the idli vade sambar. So of course this idli has been sitting in that sambar for a bit. So bits of it have given into the sambar already. I'm tasting a bit of the tartness, a little bit of the sweetness that comes from the jaggery, also a little bit of the heat. I'm sure there's some byadgi mensankai that goes into this sambar. The texture is a sort that is quite watery, and that because they want that sambar to penetrate deep into that idli. But although it's quite neer type in its consistency, it is a sort of sambar that's rather flavorful. Sometimes if you're tasting a watery sambar, even the flavors are watered down. But out here, none of that. You're tasting that sourness that comes from the tamarind. Somewhere you also have a bit of the texture, that slight grainy texture of the lentils. And at the back of your throat, you can feel the warmth of that mensankai, of that byadgi red chilies. Let's now go for that idli with that sambar. There's also flecks of the fresh coconut that you see floating in that sambar. Bari bayali idere. That idli readily dissolves. You don't even need to move your mouth a bit. Just place that idli laden with all that sambar on your tongue, and that idli quite deliciously dissolves away. There's a bit of tartness that I'm also tasting in that idli. And it's a sort of idli that feels rather light. And out here, the ratio that they follow of the akki tari of the rice to the uddu is a 1:2. So for every 2 measures of the akki tari, there's a measure of the urad dal batter. Delicious. There's also coriander stalks that you're tasting in that sambar, and that brings with it its own herbaceous sort of punch. Definitely the sort of meal that you want to be breaking a fast with. And now for some of that uddina vade. It's been soaking up that sambar, so that crunch that you would expect in a uddina vade has almost disappeared, barring a slight whisper of a crunch that you get at the very end. You're biting into flecks of coconut there, and what you're tasting mostly is the flavor of the fried urad dal. What I like about the sambar is the balance of flavors. It's not a sambar that's too sweet, it's not a sambar that's too sour, it's not a sambar that's too spicy. I think there's a good balance of the flavor notes that you would typically be looking for in a sambar. And I think that's what makes it quite appealing. Now for some of that chutney. The chutney ali ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ spice ಇದೆ, ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಖಾರ ಇದೆ. So I think if you want that green chili punch, definitely that chutney. Flecks of coconut too that I'm tasting in that uddina vade. I think this is what we call a happy start. So good. This is sort of food that is simple, quite homely, and you know it's been prepared with a lot of care. There is no excess of tuppa, benne, whatever. It's a dish that's made to traditional recipes, and that's what it's all about. But it's made exceedingly well, and that's what gives you most satisfaction. I bit into a chili there somewhere. I can feel that heat of that chili. If I were to pick a word to describe what I've tasted thus far, beyond my lengthy description, well, it's very wholesome food. Be it the idli, the vade, the sambar, or that spicy chutney. And that Goli Bajje is certainly the sort that will have you reaching for more. Oh, there's also some red chili that goes into that somewhere. And green chilies too. That's interesting. So you got the heat from the chili and then that sweetness from the sugar. But I think if you want to enjoy the Goli Bajje, you got to have it soon after this has been fried. This was still warm when it came to us. I don't know if they fry multiple batches through the day, through the evening. But certainly inquire if the Goli Bajje is still hot or warm at least. This would also be fantastic with just some coffee, with some strong dark coffee. ಇದು ಖಾಲಿ ದೋಸೆ. ಇದು ಮಸಾಲೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಇದು ಸಾಗು. So this is the most popular dosa option that I saw being made on that dosa hanchu there and also being consumed. This is the Khali Dosae, and typically when you order a Khali Dosae you get two of these with some sambar and some chutney. But some of the customers also recommended that I try it with the sagu and also the palya. This is the palya that goes into the masala dosa. There's also the option of getting some benne, and Mr. Girish did ask me, he said, "ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ benne beka?" I said no. With great difficulty I said no, I will taste it as is. This is a dosa that's almost white on one side and quite delicately toasted on the other. What's important in a good Khali Dosa is to get these pores. So even as you watch that dosa roast on that dosa tawa, you will see these pores opening up, and that's what makes a good Khali Dosa. I suspect that this texture of the dosa also allows for it to greedily lap up either the chutney or the sambar. That dosa is still warm. Taste the dosa first just as is. Mind you, there is no oil that gets slathered over this dosa, no tuppa as well. So therefore this is a dosa that does feel a little dry to the touch. But an interesting thing that we discovered is that when the dosa is made, there is first some oil that is smeared on that dosa tawa, that the oil is then wiped away and then that dosa is poured on it for it to get that perfect browning. Whereas in the case of the masala dosa, that hanchu has to be absolutely dry, bereft of any oil for it to get the right kind of browning. I've tasted so many dosas, I've watched so many dosas being made, but each time I step into a kitchen, I learn something new. Enough said, let's get to tasting this mltr Khali Dosae. It's a dosa that's quite airy, quite soft, quite fluffy, and I think the sort that will benefit from a dunk in that sambar. For some reason, I feel the potency of that sambar is 1.5 times the sambar that I tasted in the idli. The sambar is the same, mind you, but I think what happens is in the Khali Dosa, because of all these open pores, it drinks up a generous amount of that sambar and all the spices that have gone into it. And that's the punch that you're tasting on your palate. There's also a bit of the toasty flavors that you taste of the near caramelized side of the dosa. I think now with some chutney. That's a chutney that's definitely spicy. Dosa makes for such a beautiful fluffy medium to scoop up the flavors of the sambar.
ಇದು ಎಲ್ಲರೂ ಪ್ರಿಫರ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಸಾಂಬಾರ್. ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಡೆ ಖಾಲಿ ದೋಸೆ ಸಾಂಬಾರು ಕೊಡಲ್ಲ, ಬರೀ ಚಟ್ನಿ ಮಾತ್ರ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ. ಬಟ್ ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಕೊಡದೇ ಹೋದ್ರೂ ಕಸ್ಟಮರ್ ಕೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಸಾಂಬಾರು.
Sambar kodi. So typically most Khali dosas are served only with the chutney. But out here he says, from the beginning people have loved our sambar with the dosa. So instead of them requesting for it, we serve it for every order of the Khali Dosae. And I think we should also taste that dosa with some of that sagu and palya too. I think we're going to taste it with the sagu first. That's a gatti sagu. There's some carrot there, some onions, some potatoes I'm sure, some beans perhaps. There's also some gourd in that. There's a slight sweetish tinge that I'm tasting in the sagu. I think next with that palya, with the dosa palya. That's a palya that's quite sprightly with the flavor of the coriander, some of the sasve. I think perhaps because this is gatti, this is dry. So I think if you want to savor this, scoop up some of the palya and then dunk it either into the sambar or the chutney, just to lend it a bit of moistness. I love the sweet crunch of the onion in that palya. That's his chutney. That's quite spicy. ಈಗ ಏನಿದೆ
ಸಾಗು ಮಸಾಲೆ ಇದೆ, ಪೂರಿ ಇದೆ,
ಬ್ರೆಡ್ ರೋಸ್ಟ್. ಬ್ರೆಡ್ ರೋಸ್ಟ್ ಅಂದರೆ
ಒಟ್ಟಿಗೆ ಜಾಮು ಸಾಕು, ನಮ್ಮದೇ ಸ್ಪೆಷಲ್ ಜಾಮ್ ಇದೆ.
bread roast. I've never had a bread roast on the show. He says maybe roast the bread and then they serve it with some jam and some sagu. Quite curious to know what will arrive on the table. ಇದು ನಿಮ್ಮದು ಹೋಮ್ ಮೇಡ್ ಜ್ಯಾಮ್. ಕಲರಿಗೆ ಬರುತ್ತೆ ಸರ್ ಇದಕ್ಕೆ?
ಸರ್ ಒಂಚೂರು ಹಾಕ್ತೀವಿ
ಟೊಮೆಟೊ ರೆಡ್ ಹಾಕ್ತೀರಾ? ಸೊ ಬನಾನಾ, ಟೊಮೆಟೊ ಆ್ಯಂಡ್ ಶುಗರ್. ಫ್ಯಾಂಟಾಸ್ಟಿಕ್. ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಸಮಥಿಂಗ್ ಇಂಟ್ರೆಸ್ಟಿಂಗ್. ವೆನ್ ಐ ಕೇಮ್ ಹಿಯರ್ ನನಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿತ್ತು ನಿಮ್ಮದು ಖಾಲಿ ದೋಸೆ ಇದೆ, ಇಡ್ಲಿ ವಡೆ ಇದೆ, ಬಟ್ ಈ ಥರದ್ದು ಟೋಸ್ಟ್ ಮತ್ತು ಇದು ಜ್ಯಾಮ್ ಅದು ಗೊತ್ತಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಐ ಥಿಂಕ್ ಐ ಶುಡ್ ಟೇಸ್ಟ್ ದಟ್ ಜ್ಯಾಮ್ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಬೈ ಇಟ್ ಸೆಲ್ಫ್. It's sweet, of course, and somewhere at the back you can register the flavor notes of the banana. Slight sourness ಇದೆ, ಅದು ಟೊಮೆಟೊ ಇಂದ. This is delicious, tasty. There's also some cardamom that goes into it that also gives it a slight edge in terms of its flavor notes. But what is definitely registering is the flavor of the banana. The grind ಮಾಡ್ತೀರಾ?
ಫಸ್ಟು ಟೊಮೆಟೊ ಬೇಯಿಸ್ತೀವಿ, ಬಾಳೆಹಣ್ಣು ಜೊತೆ ಹಾಕಿ ಮಿಕ್ಸ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಆಮೇಲೆ
ಫ್ಯಾಂಟಾಸ್ಟಿಕ್. ಇದು ಎವ್ರಿ ಡೇ ಇರುತ್ತೆ? ಮಾರ್ನಿಂಗ್, ಸಂಡೇ ಸ್ಯಾಟರ್ಡೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಸೂಪರ್ ಇದೆ ಸರ್, ಸೂಪರ್, ವೆರಿ ನೈಸ್. ಆನ್ ದ್ಯಾಟ್ ನೋಟ್, ಲೆಟ್ us get some of that sagu. It's basically a vegetable sagu. There's some gourd, some dried peas in that, perhaps some tomato, plenty of onions. So I'm told the combination here, some sagu and then smear over some of that jam. It's got the pouring consistency of a tomato sauce, but taste wise it's quite untomato like, and I think somewhere in a very strange sort of way that tomato and banana coming together with a hint of the cardamom, it also has a bit of a guava tone. This is a combination that I've never tasted before. Toast with some sagu and a homemade banana tomato jam. I'm still trying to register what this tastes like. I think that toast, because it's roasted on that dosa hanchu, somewhere it also has some sort of a character of a dosa in terms of the flavor that it registers on your palate. That sagu, though gentle on its own, I think in combination with that jam, tastes a bit spicy. And then the flavor of that jam. So this is like a toasted sandwich that is both savory and sweet at the same time. What I'm enjoying most though is the flavor of that jam. Since we've tasted the sweet, I think let's now move on to the sweets here. So sweet ali ಏನು ಕೊಡ್ತೀರಾ?
ಕ್ಯಾರೆಟ್ ಹಲ್ವಾ ಇದೆ, ಜಾಮೂನ್ ಇದೆ, ಕೇಸರಿ ಬಾತ್.
So carrot halwa taste ಮಾಡಿ. Carrot halwa ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಖೋವಾ ಇದೆಯಾ?
ಕ್ಯಾರೆಟ್ ಬೇಯಿಸೋದು, ನೀರು ಇದು ಹಾಲಲ್ಲಿ ಸಕ್ಕರೆ ಹಾಕೋದು, ಹುರಿದಿರೋ ರವೆ ಹಾಕ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಮಿಕ್ಸ್.
Well, this is a old style gajar halwa. There is no khoa, no milk solids, nothing of that sort. So it's basically carrot that's cooked with some roasted semolina, some coconut, and there's also some drakshe, some raisins that go on top. Of course, along with the sugar that brings it all together. There's no milk solids, but there's the milk that brings it all together, and you can definitely taste a bit of that creamy texture in this dessert. But what you're really tasting is that fleshy nature of the carrot and also a bit of that khaali, the coconut, every once in a while. So this is a sort of dessert that you can enjoy without feeling too guilty. Hello? Light ಇದೆ ಮತ್ತೆ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಏನು ಗೋಡಂಬಿ ಹಾಕ್ತೀರಾ ದ್ರಾಕ್ಷಿ ಇದೆ and there's some cashews and raisins as garnish. Very homely, and I think that in a manner of speaking sums up the dishes that I've tasted. Whether it was the idli vade or the Goli Bajje, I've saved one to taste with my coffee, or the dosa, the Khali Dosae, or even things like this bread toast with that homemade jam and the sagu are the sort that are quite homely, quite light in the manner in which they sit on your stomach. I've tasted 5 dishes thus far, but I'm not feeling uneasy at all. I'm not feeling in the least heavy. In fact, I feel I could easily eat 1 or 2 dishes more. But I think we're going to draw this tasting to a close with the gajar halwa and of course with some coffee. So hot that I can barely hold it. So I'm told this is an 80-20, so there's 80% coffee, 20% chicory, and it's a deep roast. So it's a sort of coffee that quite literally bites you. Not very viscous, not very thick, but one that makes for a happy ending to your meal here. Of course, I've saved some of that Goli Bajje that I think will be nicely washed down with that coffee. There's a bit of chili that I'm tasting in that Goli Bajje, and that, in a manner of speaking, also serves to heighten the perceived temperature of that coffee. If somebody is giving you a bende murku, no helbediri. I'm not complaining. The flavor of the oma, a bit of the jeerige, and also the soft bite, the soft crunch of that murku. So if you want to taste some old-fashioned tiffin tindi in an atmosphere that will transport you to a time from decades ago, definitely find your way to Mahalakshmi Tiffin Room here in Basavanagudi. I've enjoyed every dish that I've tasted, from the idli vade to the dosa, that gajar halwa, that bende murku, Goli Bajje, and now this coffee. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Until the next time, take care, stay safe, stay strong, and happy eating and drinking. Well, all the dishes that I've tasted, the Mangalore bajji, the idli, vade, Khali Dosae, palya, sagu, bread toast, halwa, and the coffee tea, is all of rupees 217. Good food, homely food, honestly priced in an environment that takes you back to the good old days. What more can you ask for? If you'd like to support the work that we do at Food Lovers TV, do consider joining our membership community on YouTube by hitting the join button below or on the home page. You could pledge a nominal sum and receive special privileges like behind the scenes footage, shoot updates, access to live Q&As, and a lot more. You could support us on a Patreon page as well. For more info, check out the links in the description below. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment below. Happy eating!